stream is starting to come up.
Okay.
We're live on YouTube. For those of you on YouTube, just give us a second here. We're getting all the other destinations up and live. If you're joining us on Facebook, thanks for being here with us on Facebook. Get the Facebook distribution set up first. Doesn't like to make this a public show. There we go.
Yeah, I just got a paid account at StreamYard yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You tossed down the Libsyn credit card, huh?
No.
Why not?
I don't have a Libsyn credit card. That's why.
Oh, then you'll expense it then.
Well, we'll see.
If I'm doing something for Blueberry, I'm expensing it.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I have to ask. Well, I have a signing authority to a certain level. Then I have to go to the board of directors and say, "Can I spend more than this?"
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess I should have that being the CEO, but it's not like I can just willy-nilly do stuff. I better have justification just like anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sure. Almost ready here. If you join us via Facebook, strap in. We've got a great show for you. On Twitter, YouTube, everywhere else, we're up. Oh, let me check one last thing. Ah, yes, and we're acquiring a crowd that's coming in.
Now?
Yes, we are. Make sure you check in and say hello. And if you are someone that's here to make sure we're not talking about you, don't worry, we will. All right.
Be assured.
Hey everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing terrific, Todd. Great to be back doing the show.
It is a Red Bull day, and Red Bull is not a sponsor of the New Media Show. So
yeah, well, it's a Red Bull day every day because it's right behind your head. So.
I don't normally sit here all the time, but I'll be honest with you, it might become a monster day. I need something a little more powerful.
Yes. Yes, and didn't the guest tell you we should be promoting a different energy drink than Red Bull for some reason?
Bam.
Bam
right. Is the one.
That's
yep.
Right. Bam.
Okay, so everyone, welcome to the show. I guess the first thing, gosh, there's so much.
Where do you want to start?
Oh my God. We might as well just go where I want to go because I got to.
Well, because there's Joe Rogan, there's Adam Curry, then there's Spotify, right?
So let's go with Spotify.
Okay. All right.
You sent out a email to the PR people over at Spotify.
I did.
And they can't be on the show, but
no, let's be clear.
Okay.
I sent it out to the fellow that's kind of in charge of. He's like the director of podcast over at Spotify. He's not the PR people, but I did get referred to the PR. There you go.
So maybe we'll have someone on next weekend or next week.
Yeah,
maybe.
I have no idea who that would be, but we'll see.
So they give us another week to absorb the Joe Budden stuff. And, a lot of people are calling Joe Budden a crybaby, but he's not. If you listen to what he had to say, and if you haven't listened to the 2 hours, you don't have to listen to the 4-hour show. I did. If you want to listen to the 2-hour YouTube video, what he really lays down is, this is a Reader's Digest version. We did what we signed to do.
Right.
We got no break. We didn't get to take Christmas off. We didn't get a bonus because of some numbers and listener hours or whatever. It's not downloads over there. It's viewer minutes or whatever. But yet they were the number one podcast on Spotify for 2 years running, blah, blah, blah. We thought we were going to get a bigger check or bigger offer on the renewal after everyone else got a bag. And he refers to Joe Rogan getting a big bag, the Bill Simmons getting a big, and we're talking about a big bag of not $100 bills, but $1 million bills.
Yeah, well, they've been throwing a lot of money around. Joe Rogan and Gimlet and Paracast, all those folks, right?
Yep.
So,
But
I
Joe
mean,
Budden did not get. He got a. They said they got a good offer.
Yeah.
But not enough.
I guess. Right.
He said,
Is it ever really enough? That's the other question.
I'm
Because
50. I'm 50.
A lot of people count those zeros as like an ego thing, right? It's like keeping score. It's like winning a basketball game, 80-10 or something like that.
Rob,
It can be, right.
I'm 56. If someone comes to me and says, "Hey Todd, you want to sell the new media show for $10 million?" I'd be like, "Yes," and I'll give Rob 5, and we will
Thanks,
walk.
Todd.
We'll be done. We're done.
No. I think if we took a deal like that, we'd have to keep going, and we have to do it even more.
No, they would
right?
would put Adam Curry and someone else in our place here.
Oh, there you go. They just drop Adam in here.
But no, if so here's, and he is open to doing business with Spotify in the future. But what here was the main takeaway. And I think this is what I've been feeling personally before I heard Joe talking, is that, and he had did he use the word leeching? What word did he use? It was basically they're taking, and we knew this already, they're taking content.
Right.
And they're using it to build people on their platform so they don't have to pay music artists. He was getting paid, but the rest of us podcasters, guess what we're getting? We're getting sparkly dust.
Well, we're getting audience, Todd. People are listening to what we're saying. Right?
Yeah. On this show, they're not listening on Spotify.
Yeah.
And as of today, Spotify is down again in global numbers, at least on our side, 3 months in a row. So take that for whatever it's worth. So, and Google Podcasts is up. And so maybe it's just being offset. Maybe they're not down. Maybe just Google Podcasts is bringing more people, but they're definitely not gaining market share. So I just think that as podcasters, we just need to realize that this is an open space. We choose where we want to be. And if someone does come calling with a big fat check with lots of zeros, you better hire a really good lawyer. Call Joe Budden and give him a consulting fee to make sure you know what needs to be in the contract. That would be worth a $10,000. Hey, Joe, I need an hour of your time. What lines in this contract do I need to black out, and which ones do I need to add? That would probably that's going to be money well spent. Joe should go in the consulting business for people getting cash, because he's going to tell you exactly what you should and shouldn't do. Make sure you put your vacation days in there.
Right.
And clear and concise bonus requirements. And if you say you're going to buy me a Rolex, you better be willing to roll out the G's to give me a Rolex as a bonus versus cash.
Not expect me to get a used one, right? Is that the... Yeah.
So if you're a listener of this show, I'm just going to put it out there. Please go listen to the 2 hours. Make your own opinion. But there are takeaways that every podcaster needs to hear, and you'll come back with some perspective on why Rob and I, the old curmudgeons that we are, have been talking about what we've been talking about for the past many, many years.
Thought I have a feeling we're doing a show on Spotify, even though Spotify didn't join us. Right?
That's okay. They're not here to defend themselves. You don't show up, you get talked about.
Right. And when they do show up, I mean, everybody will be fully engaged with all of the topics and issues. I don't know that all those topics and issues will be talked about in the show, but I think, do we want to expand on this topic a little bit? And let me just throw this out, Todd, not to throw gas on the fire here, but have we been unfair to Spotify?
And we can only talk about what we know. I don't think we've been unfair to Spotify, because we've used in the past a lot of what ifs. We've said, what if Spotify monetized around our content? They haven't. Except some people say they have heard ads.
Yeah.
What if someone does come to you with money And it doesn't matter if it's Spotify or anybody else. What if what if you do? The same thing applies to anybody. You go get a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you make sure you have a good contract written up. We're nothing against Spotify.
Right. And I think the saying that Spotify is doing nothing in the space is probably unfair, and in comparison to Apple, and this was a topic that was raised by a
listener.
A listener message to us about, are we being unfair? Because Spotify is doing educational things. They're putting on, they're trying to encourage people to create content and all this kind of stuff. And Apple hasn't done as much of that as I would like to see them do it. But, Apple's also been a fairly, I'm going to say fair platform for podcasting of over 15 years. And it's kind of hard to discount that. Spotify is fairly new to the medium. So,
and I think, to be fair, and the listener knows who they are, I'm being careful here.
Right.
I think you got to craw up your ass about Apple.
I mean, I can see the point that's being made, though. I mean, but that's a subjective view.
Yeah, and we've got subjective views.
Right. How you're looking at the long term of this, I mean, you and I have had relationships with the Apple team for a very long time, and they've been very good to the medium. I mean, sure, they have 80% of the total market if you really look at what their platform has done. And, you have to ask yourself, Spotify has like 9 or 10% maybe. And there's a reason why Apple has gained that kind of market share too. And that's because they've been a great platform for the medium over the years.
And so I want to read this before it falls off my chat here. Eileen said pillaging. That's what he said. Pillaging equals to strip ruthlessly of money or goods by open violence, as in war and plunder. That's the definition of pillage. So Joe didn't specifically say that, but he did use the word pillage.
Right.
And Tom Webster in the chat room says, the Budden Show is riveting. I wrote this 2 years ago. Podcasting on Spotify is about reducing the cost of goods sold, the percentage of audio content they have to pay licensing for. Ding, 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 ding. I agree. Yeah. But going back to the comment I made, and I apologize if I've upset someone with my language, is Rob and I both have very close perspectives, and we have discussions and emails and chats on a regular basis with lots of parties. Rob talks to Apple. I talk to Spotify. We both do. We talk to whoever in the place on a business level all the time. Right. We also hang out as all the rest of you do in all the podcast forums on Facebook or wherever people gather, and we read all the newsletters. Spotify may be doing something, but it's not very visible to the overall independent podcast community. It's reaching certain people, but I think if you told, I didn't know they're doing education. Where did they advertise they were doing education?
Well, it's usually an invite only kind of thing, usually, from my experience with it.
So
Apple has done similar type of
things
as well.
Right? But when Apple also has open meetings where they discuss stuff. You're not allowed to take notes. I found that up the hard way, or pictures. But you can talk about it afterwards. You're not under NDA.
Right.
To not talk about it unless they specifically ask you.
They're not going to share anything with us that is not okay.
Right. Right.
That's the thing you have to realize about pretty much all these big companies. Yeah.
So, and again, a lot of people love Spotify. Hey, we're happy they're in the space, bringing new people. Mm-hmm. But we all know what we've signed up for. I know when I signed up for this show to be put on the Spotify platform, I very well knew that I was playing by their rules. It's their platform. They do as they please. I am a guest to be on their platform. And if they get pissed off at me, they can remove this show tomorrow, and I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes with every other platform out there that we're on. But therein, this show will never go off the air completely because guess what we have? newmediashow.com/podcast/feed is the RSS feed to this show that
Right.
we can't be deplatformed. We are the platform.
Right. Well, we're the core platform.
Right. Our newmediashow.com is the platform. That's where this show resides.
There's redistributors of
Right.
content,
Re-syndicators.
Well, Todd, and this is another topic that we haven't really talked about too, is as we talk about content and platforms kind of struggling in their relationship, right? As you look to the future, people going exclusive, not people getting paid, some people not. And, you start thinking about the dynamics of this, and it does create a situation where if you want to remove your show from a platform, can you do it? Right?
I think
As
so.
a pushback on being included because you want a deal or you want, can you do that? Once you're in a platform as a content creator, can you get out?
Yeah. Well, at least if they've submitted through us, we just shut it off.
Right. Now, granted, some of the distribution is dependent on Apple, right? So
True.
if you submit to Apple, it's okay to be in Apple, but maybe you don't want to be in some other list that derives off of Apple.
Right? I know where you're going here.
APIs.
Yeah.
How do you remove that? Okay, so you have to contact that listening app directly, and some of these platforms, these listening apps, don't really have direct relationship with content providers, right? That there's a pathway. Sure, you can go through some support pathway or whatever, but think that the pathways of content creators having full control over access to these platforms and adding or removing or whatever is a little bit of a weakness in the medium. Now, Libsyn has played a little bit of a game. We have the potential of generating separate RSS feeds for different platforms, so it does enable you to pull back one. But I think as you think about the balance between creation and distribution, I think it needs to be a fair platform. It needs to be a fair relationship on both sides. It's not just the listening platform that can take you down. The content creator can take it down without disabling other.
We have content creators on a regular basis contact Blueberry and ask us to remove their podcasts from the directory. We probably get 1 or 2 a week of those. Right. And we do. We take them. We take the shows offline and we don't even ask why. We don't even try to explain it's a directory. They don't want it up there. We're happy to oblige and remove it. So
it gets back to why someone wanted that, right?
Well, it runs the gambit, Rob. And sometimes, even though I try to suppress search results, because we try to make the directory not be, well, let's put it this way, it's not as indexable friendly to Google as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes our listings end up higher in their listing. So sometimes they want it removed because they don't want, and I understand that, they don't want our listing higher than their listing, than their show listing in the search result.
I mean, there was a period in the past, Todd, and I don't know if you remember this, but I don't think we ever talked about this, is that there was a time, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, when I would email podcast creators being surprised that they were included in certain apps, right? Listening apps that they didn't know of, right? Right. There'd be this reaction. It's like, well, how did I get in there, right? I don't see those emails as much as I used to in the past. And it was usually from people that were creating content out of radio, right? Or they would create a podcast. They didn't really understand the dynamics of the medium, and they submitted over to a platform, or a platform just went out and grabbed all these RSS and just added it to their catalog, which was also happened as well. And so there was these surprise podcasters like, well, I don't know that I want to be over there, right?
Now, we do get on occasion, maybe once a quarter, someone screams at us, how did I end up here?
Right.
And in those responses, we say, this is how you ended up over here. And
Right.
usually then they go, oh, cool. But initially it was like,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
they take you
boom,
out back and
shoot me.
shoot you,
Yeah, right. And but when people just come in and say, hey, can you please remove me from the directory? It's not because why am I here? It's because I don't want to be in your directory, So but I did want to address one thing, and I know that person.
Back to control.
I know that one person's still listening. I
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think of Apple today, as podcasters, we better thank our lucky stars. They did what they did and have done what they have done.
Right.
I agree with that. Rob, two Robs and Todd know very well that in July of 2005, when then iTunes had podcast in it, and we were able, it was such a huge inflection point. Huge.
It was the key inflection point.
Well, it was a key.
Yeah,
it was a key.
That and the iPhone. Those were the two inflections.
So even though Adam Curry says Steve Jobs asked to use his directory and use that to do the initial influx, I don't necessarily know if that is true, because everyone still had to submit to Apple. They may have launched with a preloaded shows, but I know I had to submit my show over there and to get it listed.
Most shows did. I think he's referring to. I think he was referring to Dave Weiner's platform that he was building back then, based on the OPML standard.
Well, he had a directory of sorts at the time.
Well, he did, but I know Dave was building an OPML platform.
Right,
and if you don't know what OPML platform is, it's basically a higher level document structure, like the XML stuff for podcasting, but it was a listing of shows and RSS feeds, not a listing of episodes, right? So they were pushing this model of an open directory, right, based on OPML, which was a derivative of XML then, and I think it's still around. I just don't think anybody's using it of any consequence. But I kind of wonder if that's what Dave or Adam is trying to resurrect here.
Let's get into that in a second. But I think what we see here is all tides rise together. And whatever Spotify does and whatever Apple does and whatever Stitcher does and blah, 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 we all go together with this and we rise and we get more listenership. But we just all have to fully understand that we've already created this monster. And it's not a monster. It's the reason why podcasting is the way podcasting is today, is this open syndication, open distribution. Everybody wants our content. We're not getting paid for it. So what we have to do is that you're not going to put that genie back in the bottle unless someone comes to you with a contract and a check. We're going to have to continue to figure out how to make money on our own, because we're not going to get paid by anybody but those that support the show and sponsor the show and stuff like that. Those that have our content, they're getting a free ride, and they're offsetting millions of dollars worth of operating costs by people listening to our voices, and that's it. We weren't having this conversation before Spotify, Pandora, or any of the other platform, Rob. We weren't talking about this.
No, because it wasn't really much of an issue. But now we're in this new landscape of what's happening with these big platforms and big money and stuff like that. It's getting a little more serious.
They're pillaging.
Right, I guess.
That's my new word. Thanks, Joe.
Right.
You got to get Joe on this show. We got to get him on here.
I know. I sent an email once already. I just don't think I had the right email address. So
we got to get him on here, because you thought Adam Curry was good. We'd wait till we get Joe on here for an hour and a half. We'll make that a 3-hour special.
Okay. Let's not confuse our audience. I mean, I'd love to get Joe Rogan on here too. That would be great too. But
yeah.
Joe Budden.
Budden. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, and it looks like Adam's going to be on Rogan's.
He's the first
show that he's doing from his new studio.
Yep. And Adam is, up to something. Adam
Yeah.
Curry.
Podcast 2.0.
Well, he called it RSS 2.0, which initially kind of confused people, but because there is RSS 2.0 is already a spec.
Yeah.
Is the spec for enclosure. So podcast 2.0.
Well, yeah, it's like a replacement thing for Apple Podcast Directory, which
Blueberry has a directory with a full API. You want access to it? Just send me an email. It's not free anymore.
Right, and it gets back to this trend line that I've actually been feeling for many months now. Is all these apps that have been pulling from the Apple API need to start charting their own destiny here. Who knows what Apple's going to do with that that API? It may not be around in the future.
And what we're referencing is Pocket Cast has went on their own. They say they're not pulling from the Apple API anymore.
So you're going to have to submit directly to them through a submission form in the future.
But they didn't. Well, they didn't say that is the only way. You see, remember, we do the same thing.
Well, not all people will be submitting, right? And they don't want to miss out. So what they have to build, and this is a conversation I've had with many platforms, is that if you're going to have submissions, but you've been pulling from the Apple API, or you have your own submission form, you better have a good kind of duplication filter going on in your platform, right? You don't want 3 different versions getting into your platform.
Or just call me, because we don't only pull from Apple API. We source other ways to get podcast listings. So feel free to call me.
And sometimes listeners will submit your show to these platforms
they will
too. And if they happen to get their hands on maybe
wrong
copied RSS feed somewhere, it can cause a little bit of heartache for you as a podcast. So it's I've seen that happen many times too.
I was surprised though about the Pocket Cast comment that they feel the Apple API might be closing. Now,
well, I think there's been worry about it for a long time, but I don't know that it's based on anything.
Here's my crystal ball prediction, just on everything I've talked to. Why would they do that?
I don't know either.
Because it logically doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because what are they doing? They are populating all the Android apps except for 1 or 2, all the iOS apps except for 1 or 2.
Yeah.
If they turn that off, they're just cutting their own foot off. They're hurting.
Are they really?
I think so, because what drives what is the machine of Apple making money on? Apps, and the revenue share that apps may provide.
Oh, you're talking about additional podcast listing apps
in
their store,
right? Why would you cut off the hand that's feeding you and driving utilization of your devices? Then they are not going to. If they shut the API off, I'll put $100 on the table right here. That if Apple, you screw me, I'm upset. And hey, if Apple shut down their stuff, I would winner chicken dinner, because we would do a whole bunch of business. Whole bunch, because we've got the entire directory, we've got an API. You just do your API changes and you're back in business. I'd make a lot of money, but I'm going to $100 down on the table that says Apple will never, that's a big word, turn off their API for podcasting. And if they do, I'll take that $100, and Rob, you name the charity of your choice, and I will donate that to a charity.
But Todd, could they turn it off for any app that's loaded on Android?
No, I don't think they will. I really don't.
Okay.
I really don't. How can they discern it?
Yeah,
there's no API key. You aren't assigned a token currently.
Right.
So $100 on the table here. You audience can hold me to it. If they ever shut down the API, Rob names a charity and I'll send it in. I'm saying they'll never shut down their API. Now, okay. I win no matter what. $100 goes to charity, and I'm like, hey, I would buy a big Google ad campaign, contact every podcast app, and say, hey, we got your back. Just here's your sign this contract, and we'll give you a key, and you can come in and update your app. No problem.
Well, okay, let's play out some other scenarios too.
Okay.
I mean, what changes might be in Apple's interest to make to that relationship with these apps? Do we think that Apple is, I mean, this is another rumor that's flying around. Is Apple going to start charging for submissions?
No. Never.
Why wouldn't they? They charge for
Nope.
submissions of app.
Nope. Not happening.
Why
Nope.
wouldn't you need to create like a developer's account
Rob,
or have a
Rob.
I know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
If a listener cannot get a podcast that he loves on the Apple iPhone, what's he going to buy?
Think he's going to go to Android because
Yeah,
of one podcast?
maybe. They're not going to
Get that
do that. They're
podcast
not going to
on-
do that. They're
On
not.
other listening apps?
Rob, whoever, did you come up with that rumor?
No, I didn't.
Come on.
Actually, I did not. It's actually been coming out of other places for a while now.
Ryan said podcasting has been following the lifestyle of public access TV. Now the networks that come in and want to control that content and fill those time slots. Absolutely, they do. But here's the problem. It's open. The
Right.
only place it's closed, and it's really not closed, are the platforms that have like Pandora, Spotify, and so forth. But it's not closed. They're still being fed by RSS.
Mhm.
So
Right.
nothing really changes. They want to lock this content up. Oh, they would love to. They'd love to lock up. We've had people for years that want to lock up segments of content, but they're not willing to pay.
Right. Yeah. And Todd, also one thing that was interesting, and this is another segue back to Spotify conversation again, which I have a feeling we're going to spend a lot more time on here. Is what happened when Joe Rogan did the switch over here just the last day or so over to Spotify,
Well, you'll know more
And-
about that than I will.
and how they're looks like about 46 episodes have been switched over, but there's a bunch of episodes that are missing
Is
or
40
haven't been switched over.
Is it the
46
last-
episodes have not been switched.
Is it the last 46 or 46 intermittently that haven't been switched over?
Selectively
Oh.
based on content topics.
Oh, oh,
Yes.
oh.
Like, wow, the episode with Alex Jones didn't make it over on Spotify. I wonder
Really?
why that happened.
If Joe Rogan wants to test that relationship, he'd have Alex Jones as his next guest on the first exclusive Spotify to see how that goes.
Well, he did have Alex Jones on his show.
Oh, I know, but it didn't move over. So
It did move over, and so did a few others out there too.
Are you sure? I thought I read it did move over, but it didn't move over.
Mm-mm.
Oh, so I read that
No.
wrong. That is an iBrowser.
46 different shows didn't make the jump.
But just remember, Joe Rogan's podcast, once they go exclusive over there, is no longer a podcast. It's the Joe Rogan Show. It's no longer the Joe Rogan podcast because it's not a podcast anymore.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
so we're clear, let's make sure that's evident. It is no
Well-
longer a podcast technically.
Well, Joe Rogan also posted, and this is directly from Pod News, so he posted it to Instagram, I guess. He gave a date of December 1st as being the date that the show will be removed from other platforms,
So
which means pretty much everything else, right?
that's right. So he will no longer be a podcast.
Right.
Does anybody care even about that technical term anymore?
Well, um, hmm, uh, I don't know that he considers himself a podcaster now. I talked to another content creator the other day that um, is converting over to everything just being a show, not even using the term podcast
That's
anymore.
fine.
Yeah.
We're the new media show.
Right. We're this show is more than a podcast as well.
That's right. But it still technically is being distributed as a podcast, both the audio and video, as well as
Right.
live streamed and everything else we
Right.
do.
Now, if we were to take down the RSS feed,
Eh.
this would not be a podcast.
No, we'd still be the new media show, but you wouldn't be able to subscribe to it anymore on Apple Podcast or Pocket Cast or Overcast or.
Right.
Well, that's probably a topic we need to talk about too. Overcast.
Yes. Overcast.
Tom says, and Rogan was the biggest show on Libsyn, and they aren't on Libsyn anymore, right?
Yep.
Rob. So you guys got some excess bandwidth over there. I'm sure.
Yes, we do.
So, so that tells me then that, hey everyone,
expensive.
Libsyn's got a
It's
sale going
expensive.
on.
It's expensive having Joe on our platform too. So,
And yeah, of course he was expensive to have on your platform. I know how much big shows cost. I love those shows that are paying $80 a month and they're using $8,000 worth of bandwidth. But
Right.
that's what I signed up for. You're like, please go commercial. Please go
Right.
commercial. Be a commercial podcast, please.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's that's our business model. So it is what it is.
Well,
But-
the question you have to ask is, will Joe Rogan come back? Look at Joe Budden.
Well, hopefully Joe Rogan listened to Joe Budden and thought, damn, did I get vacations planned in or not? Do I get to take Christmas off and New Year's?
Right.
Hey, that was the biggest takeaway from me. Ever do a contract? Like, yeah, I better plan in my contracted vacation days.
Right. Right.
Be able to take bereavement leave or if I've got a family member dying or something,
Well, Joe may not be able to, stop podcasting.
Well,
Right.
no, if he's got something, it's all about your lawyers and remembering to put that stuff in there because
Right.
obviously Joe
Well,
Budden
it's-
forgot about it.
That's one of the things that Joe Budden talked about too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sorry, you can't,
Christmas?
can't
No,
take any time
you
off.
can't have
Sorry.
anything off. You can pre-record, but how do you pre-record a show that's based on current events? I guess you can
Well,
talk about your dog for 3 hours.
I understand how that stuff happens. People, if they're going to sell advertising against this show, they've got campaigns that they booked out, and
But Joe
they've
didn't give up
committed
the rights to sell his ads. He still has his ad inventory. He didn't give up rights to sell his ad inventory.
Yeah. Sure.
So they have to
That's true.
monetize on the edges. Joe has to monetize in the middle.
Right. That's true, but there's still campaigns, right?
Right.
So if he just decides he's not going to do an episode, this is the part that also a lot of podcasters don't think about when they aspire to be a commercial advertising
That's
show too,
right.
is that when you contract to do 12 episodes some period of time, guess what? You're contracted to do 12 episodes. You can't just decide.
It's not like
Next-
Rob. I need a week off because I need
Right,
I need a break.
Right, exactly. It's a business, right? You have to follow through with what your commitments are.
Yeah, and I know how
So
some
It's not
podcasts.
a loosey-goosey deal.
I know how some podcasters. Oh, I took 2 shows off during the 3-month
Right.
ad campaign. I'm like, you did what?
It's the last ad campaign you're going to
Yeah,
have.
put you on the blacklist.
Right. Yeah.
Or on the that isn't probably appropriate anymore. Put them on the ban list.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So Joe Budden signed his deal a minute before podcasting deals started going for big dollars, and Rogan can still sell ads. Yep. So that's what Tom says. So he was smart. Podvader says, I heard Joe has a bunch of interviews already in the can for his launch. Well, that's
Yep.
good
I
too.
heard that.
And so that's the advantage Joe Rogan has. is
Right.
he can do, because he can do interviews ahead of time. His content is made for that.
Which is one way you can get around that whole issue of taking vacations is that you just bundle up a bunch of shows.
Right.
Yeah, Todd, did you see this the X upfront? Are you involved in that at all?
The what upfront?
The X upfront or the X front?
Nope.
It's an ad pitch
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
September 24th, Indie Podcast Upfront.
Oh, who's putting that on?
Presented by AdvertiseCast
Oh.
and Work by Work.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you saw this or not, but
You know why they're probably putting them on themselves, right? You know how much it costs to participate in an upfront?
yeah, especially like the IEB or any of that kind of stuff. Those are coming up. I think that's coming up next week.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
Those are not cheap endeavors to indulge.
No, they're not.
So that's probably why they're doing their own. Smart on their part.
This event is sponsored by Magellan AI, Simplecast, AdsWiz is also involved in this one as well.
Hmm.
And it looks like the networks involved are Crooked, Warner Media Network, AdvertiseCast, DCP, Headgum, Talkhouse, Lipstick and Vinyl,
That's good.
Qcode, Cloud 10, and Multitude, and Cast Media.
That's
So-
smart. If they all teamed up together and are avoiding writing those, and maybe they're still writing big checks, but maybe they've teamed up together to do events where they're not, they create their own event. I think it's a good move. It's smart.
Well, I mean, Warner Media, that's definitely a big corporate podcasting network there that's gotten involved in that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the indie event kind of threads the needle with, as opposed as the IEB's stuff. If it depends on,
They're not the
who
only
you-
ones doing upfronts. There's other folks doing
Oh,
some
yeah.
stuff as well. So this is either the third or fourth group that's doing.
Right.
And for those of you that understand what it is, basically what
pitches.
it's pitches. You pitch the media folks, usually generally held in New York or someplace where they can get a lot of media buyers in.
Right.
They wine and dine them, food.
All these are virtual events.
Yeah, but
now,
typically they're it's an all day affair, and you get to listen to be pitched like one every 15 minutes or something like that on upcoming shows and what's planned production wise, and it's a spin-off from TV, so that the media buyers can pre-buy
Right.
the advertising in those shows.
right, or know what content is coming, or if there's a launch of a new series, something like that. Oftentimes that happens here too. There's about 15 networks and new podcasts being presented, 60 presenters, and 5 trend sessions. So it's kind of a combination of a conference and a upfront coming together here.
I just saw Clinton join the chat room. So DragonCon is coming up
Yeah.
this week.
That's right.
And I'm speaking Saturday at 6 p.m. And
Sure.
have you
I'm
ever
not involved in it this year.
used Discord, Rob?
Yeah.
I am
Yeah, I've
not.
been actually on their Discord.
I
for,
am not
for
a
year.
Discord fan at all. I use it because
no.
I'm forced to use it.
I'm not either.
But they're organizing the entire conference in Discord, and it just makes my brain explode. And they're doing a great job, but it's just different.
It's just
Not all
too
of us.
much.
Not all of us are gamers and use Discord in that function.
Right.
And anyway, so I got my information today after, they didn't know who I was, and I'm all good. But there's going to be a couple interesting podcast
I
sessions.
didn't know who you were. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they didn't, because I was in there underneath my Geek News moniker instead of.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So, Clinton, you're on here. Tell us, you've got something with the podcast history project that's going to be presented. Why didn't he's hopefully in the chat room? I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some
Well, he
session.
can call in if he wants to.
Oh yeah, Clinton, if you want to call in, GNC Pod 2, if you want to call in and you want to tell us about it. But that's the podcast history project's going to present. I'm going to be doing my presentation on RSS and So there's a good lineup. Lots of mostly panels at Dragon Con Virtual.
Yep.
I'm probably one of the few solos that is going for Dragon Con, but yeah. So
Dragon Con isn't really Dragon Con in a virtual
no,
world.
I got my cherry popped at Dragon Con last year, and it was a lot of fun. You know, people. I was walking around like this, you know, and definitely not attired for Dragon Con because everyone else is in their favorite con attire,
right?
Their costumes.
I guess Dragon Con could be interesting if everybody went to it in an avatar, right?
Right. Well, okay.
Interesting idea.
Yeah. But they're going to be live streaming on Twitch. I guess Twitch isn't really Twitch anymore. It's Prime something. Everyone's still calling it Twitch, but Twitch has a new name. What is Twitch's new name? I think they don't like to refer to it to its new name. Twitch's new name is Amazon renames Twitch Prime to Prime Gaming. So they're going to be streaming on Prime Gaming.
The sucky name. I'm sorry, but
it's horrible. They should have kept it Twitch. It should have been Twitch by Amazon or something like that, and people could have kept calling it Twitch. It's
totally
horrible.
Named by, I don't know.
So Clinton, if you can't call in,
doesn't know how to name things. Right?
Yeah, Clinton can't call in, but tell us what time the Podcast History Project panel is. If you can tell us that would be great.
I saw it in my Facebook feed earlier. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so we'll see what happens. It's at 6 o'clock on a Saturday. No one's going to be watching, so I'm talking to myself. And
Todd, I was looking at the podcast platform page on Pod News, where they list all of the places where you can submit your podcast, and it's pretty extensive now. And I was wanting to talk to you about this too, because it seems like more and more, pretty much all. If I look at this, I mean, a lot of podcasting companies, no matter what they do, are building, listening up, right?
Yep.
So you look at, I think Libsyn's one of the few podcast host platforms that doesn't really have an emphasis on listening too. So it's kind of an interesting trend line. I see you guys have a platform for listening. Podbean has a platform for listening. Spreaker has one. But I kind of, iVox, which is another podcast and streaming radio platform out of Spain, they have a listening platform too, but they also, host podcasts.
But our platform really serves a dual purpose. So those that publish directly on Blueberry.com and don't have a website, their main site is their Blueberry listing.
Right. As you look at Pandora and you look at Spotify, right, they're major listening platforms, but they also have their hosting content too. So, you can see these worlds are colliding on each other.
So Clinton says Saturday at 2 p.m.
Saturday at 2 p.m. Right.
Saturday at 2 p.m. is the Podcast History Project panel.
Right.
And I don't have the description from me. I apologize. I couldn't read it on my mobile phone because it opened up in a PDF that had text that was about the size
tiny.
Of. Yeah.
Right.
So that's going on. There was something you alluded to earlier that we missed, that you were saying something that I thought you were dragging me into another topic. We did talk about Pocket Casts. We talked about, oh man, you failed to close me. I'm trying to think what it was in reference to, but did we talk about everything Adam's? Well, we didn't really we kind of briefed upon it, what Adam Curry's thinking. He says he's going to announce it here soon, whatever he's got planned for the directory stuff, or whatever he's coming up with.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, he didn't express it in great detail.
No, he brushed around the edges and gave me enough that I'm like, crap. Now there's another podcast I'm going to have to subscribe to. But he says it's an offering that developers and podcast app developers would be interested in it. So maybe it is. Maybe it's just another directory.
Well, I think he kept talking about how it would have other. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what he can really do with it.
No,
I did notice that Patreon got more funding. They got
why
a
do
$90
they
million.
Okay, so here's the model.
Right.
They're collecting millions of dollars and they get a cut of that. Why do they need
Right.
more money?
Right.
I'm confused because when you're collecting money and take a penny of every, or taking a percentage of every dollar brought in, that seems to me like a pretty invincible business model. They must have too much outflow. Or
Well,
maybe
it also was stated that Patreon's valuation is 1.2 billion.
that's because of the rounds they've gotten, all the money that's been invested.
Crazy.
So and that's a platform that, here's the thing about it. What they're doing there is not that today is not that evolutionary. I think about the pieces I would have to add at Blueberry, and Podbean already did it. Podbean has a Patreon type component in their system where producers can have set up. Podbean collects the money and gives them a whatever remaining that they don't take for a cut. So I looked at that as I said, okay, what is the value of building that for Blueberry? And I thought it's probably not that many pennies.
Right.
So would it take 2 months of dev time to build it, to add it in, to make a donation thing where it's integrated into our platform or into our plugin? It really just didn't make any sense. It's just like, how many people are actually going to use this? How many don't? So maybe that's the problem Patreon has. Maybe Patreon has a bunch of really, really, really big people that are getting big money for subscribers, or have a 10%, and then 90% is not even almost worth writing a check. So maybe that's the issue.
Yeah, I'm just not sure why they need so much additional funding. I mean, I don't know what they need to build that they haven't built already.
Well, they're definitely not profitable then if they're having to go out and get more money.
Right. Which begs the question. There's also, so if you spend $350 on ads for your show in Overcast and only get 119 subscribers to your show, is it worth it?
That's $3.50 a sub, $3 a sub.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or actually, that's $2 something a sub.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about that. Multiply that out by 1,000. So let's say it costs you $3,000. That, am I using the right math there? How much it was
1,000 listeners
to get 1,000 listeners? And that will pay you $25 to $35 CPM on ad deals. So you would need many, 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 many months to recoup.
Right.
But still, if you think about it, you pay $300 for a lot of people. That would be a big gain. That'd be a doubling of audience maybe for $300. So maybe, but it also has a multiplying effect too. So if you got 100, 10% of those will probably become super fans, and those 10 will probably each recommend the show a dozen or more times. Which
and
will
is
pick
that
up.
only subscriptions in Overcast, though?
Doesn't matter.
I guess not. Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not counting new subscriptions, maybe in. Well, no, I guess it would just be in Overcast, right? That would make sense.
So, I guess
unless you're pointing to another page that enables subscriptions on other platforms.
But just like my show at Geek News Central, I know that just based on my model of how I drive new subscribers to that show, if 100 subscribe, 8, 9 is going to stay.
Right. Yeah, because people churn through shows.
Well, they listen
too.
once or twice and they say, okay, this show's not for me.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of show too. Or is it a show that creates long-term listening relationships, or is it a show that has in and out listening relationships? Yeah.
Ryan says the Patreon conversion is 1% of show downloads on average, and that's because they're no name. The Patreon format may have a finite lifespan. I think the Patreon is a probably real easy to disrupt. Because guess what? I've had a PayPal link on my websites for 14 years.
Right.
I don't need Patreon.
I guess it's the variety of models that you can apply, right?
But most people, well, we don't need to redo history. But if you do a tiered level and you promise something for a tier, you might be doing a lot of work for one person.
Right. That's true.
For one person,
That's true.
And actually, I don't even have a PayPal in the direct. I have a link to my insider program. So this is the little simple thing. Let's see if I can show it.
Right.
This is a little simple thing I have on my page. So they have a little pull down here. They can select what they want for donation level and hit PayPal, or they can just do a single donation. I think we have, oh, by the way, we did get a donation for Podcast Insider. I forgot. I think it was a $25 donation. I have to look it up, but we did get one here. Oh, wrong show. Oh, don't want to show that. You got to see my backlog there for a second. Let's see here.
Also, Todd, I saw that you got selected to be a speaker at Podcast Movement Virtual. Congratulations.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then this show is going to be on part of that event too.
Yeah. So on New Media Show, we have a donate link, a little simple donate link. I don't need no stinking Patreon.
Nope.
Yeah, and I will be on Dragon Con's virtual 6 p.m. on Saturday. Anybody wants to hang out with me there? What else? There was something I was going to show you. Gosh, before we started the show today, and before I took the Red Bull, I was just like, I was dragging. I told Rob I'm tired. So if I'm not on my game today, it's my fault. Oh yeah, the $25. So I'll take my $25. I'm clearly not being compensated for my value to the New Media Show. Tom, we are eternally grateful for all the fun we have with the things you say and commentary, and we drive you an equal value of people that and sign up for your newsletter. And matter of fact, Tom, why don't you tell everyone in the chat room your newsletter link so they get signed up to your wise and good information that you share.
And there's also equal parts of driving you crazy too on this show.
That's right. The days you're cursing us, or probably more like cursing me.
We're stirring emotion, Todd.
Yeah, I was going to log into my PayPal. Internet is like slow here. I wonder why. I'm only pushing a lot of bandwidth right now. So I was going to log in and tell you who the donation came from, because I think it's important we do that. I saw it come in, and it was specifically for the New Media Show. Let's see here. Activity. All transactions.
So I want to mention something to it. This was probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 months ago, where we had Jessica on the show talking about, she podcasts. And she made some comments about you and I need to step aside a little bit more and let new people speak at events, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do we think, I know I'm not speaking at an official session at Podcast Movement Virtual this year, and I know you are, but I know of others that have been long-standing presenters at Podcast Movement at all their events. It's not happening this year. So I think there is a changing of the guard happening at these events, and I guess I don't know, what's your thoughts on all that? I think it's a good thing.
Well, I'm not a sponsor for New Media Show. Blueberry's not a sponsor for new Podcast Movement Virtual. I submitted the same session that I would have submitted as if I was going to the actual live event. I did change my topic considerably this year, so maybe that's why it got picked up. I don't know. I think that if the content, I don't expect ever to be picked just because I'm Todd or you don't. We have to submit really good sessions.
Right.
I
think a lot of people in the space just, they look at us and say, well, because of who you are, you're just going to get in automatically.
No.
And in some ways, I'm kind of backing away from being overly aggressive in this area because, for one thing, you and I do this show.
Right.
And this show can be kind of like our session that can work with a lot of different events. And that's kind of what I've been doing, right? That's what we're doing with Podcast Movement Virtual is we're doing a special episode of this show on October 21st on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And what we'll do is we'll bring in like a panel of people like we usually do up on stage. But I'm not speaking at any other part of the conference. And that's happening at a variety of other events too. And there's a lot of other people stepping up and doing, getting those spots.
I'm only hoping, and again, I don't know what goes through Podcast Movement selection process, but I'm hoping they're picking the content based on the value of the session and not necessarily because it's me. Now, I'm sure I can't deny there's probably something that plays into it, but I hope, and I wouldn't have been disappointed because I knew they had 600 submissions.
Yeah.
And
650, I think, for 60 session slots.
Yeah. So
only 10% are going to get in anyway.
So what that also tells me is I need to bring energy, A game. I need to bring a lot of information. I need to educate people during the session and make sure that it's not pitching. It's not, you and I have been very careful about that at the events that we speak to. We try to educate, and we don't, and we eat, if I talk about something where there is, I'll talk about competitors. I'll talk about Blueberry, Libsyn, Podbean, or whoever. I don't restrict myself from naming other parties that should, services you should check out.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's some biases there, obviously, because you're speaking. People know who you are, who you represent. But as long as you are very clear that what I'm going to be talking about at Podcast Movement, there's five companies in the space that do that, and I'll equally talk about all of them and the different offerings and options. And so, in a sense, I'm almost advertising for competition, but it's part of it's education. It's not advertising. That's not. We're there to tell people,
right?
Give them considerations.
Yeah.
So,
So I just think it's an interesting thing. The people that are getting selected to speak at these events. I'm trying to look at that and see if there's some common characteristics on those that are, because I know that there's a lot of podcasters out there that want to become speakers at these events, and I kind of get a sense that maybe there's fewer opportunities to speak at these events. I'm not quite sure if that would be true just because there's fewer. I mean, I'm not doing Dragon Con, and I usually did like 3 or 4 panels at Dragon Con, and I'm not doing any this year. But I just wonder if there's just something changing happening here.
I think that I didn't get speaking gigs at the beginning. Right. I had to work. I worked Rotary and Lions clubs and, school districts and.
Well, there weren't many speaking gigs in the podcasting space when we got started because there weren't many events.
No, but I still went and grinded through so that I could have experience speaking in front of groups. And I don't do keynotes. Tom does keynotes. I would love to give a keynote, because hell hath no fury of Todd Loose for a minute with 800 podcasters in one room. Or 1,000 or 3,000. You think Rob Walsh gets a lot of commentary. It's going to be Twitter central, but that's not Tom brings different perspectives. He brings a big perspective of what's going on in the podcasting space. So he's rightfully needs to be a keynoter, because no matter what, Todd, you, Rob Walsh, any of the other podcast hosting companies, this is why I always tell event organizers, we have agendas. We do. In the end, we have agendas. Each one of us have agendas.
Right.
So you need to make sure that whoever you're having speaking is bringing value and not an agenda, or knows where to leave the agenda.
I think it gets back to the trust too. And sure, there's agendas there, but there's also, I think a genuine willingness to share quality information,
Right.
and help people make good choices. That's always been my motto, and I know it's been yours too.
Yeah.
But there is an undertone for us, based on our own, alignments that we've made in the space that does have a connection here. But I'm regularly talking to podcasters and finding out what their needs are and directing them to the appropriate place.
I send people to you.
That's great if it's over to you, or if it's over at the Spreaker or wherever.
Yep. Had a client come in the other day, and I said, I think I'd love to have your business, but I think you would be better here.
Right.
I do that. You do that.
Right.
We got to have the podcaster's best interest at heart.
Right.
Clinton said, you need someone in the room who has long-term perspective. Podvader says, there never can be a complete changing of the guard. The way this industry will probably mature is the balanced mix of the old and the new. Oh, I agree. And you know what, Podvader? I sit in on as many sessions as I possibly can at events, because old dogs do learn new tricks.
Or they should learn.
They should. Right. They should. Right. And I go back and listen to virtual tickets, and I'll hear, because, what's the goal when you go to a conference? My goal is one takeaway per session, just one.
Right.
And if I can take one takeaway from it, that's 30 or 40 takeaways from an event.
Yeah.
So Tom says, we all have an agenda. Reps. You get better. That's right. You do. You get better. And believe me, it sucks when you show up and you got a room that holds 500 and there's 50. I've had that happen. Because you got slotted at the wrong hour, right after lunch, or so part of it, it's just like, I'm very happy to be speaking at Dragon Con, but it's 6:00 on a Saturday. I know what's going to be the audience. It's going to be very small.
Right.
It was like our 10:00 session at Dragon Con last year,
Right. Yeah. Which didn't even get recorded.
No, right? That's right. So you take the good with the, and
maybe it was a good thing it wasn't recorded.
It's true. That's why we did that's why we had our guest the next couple of weeks. But you take the good with the bad, and you be appreciative and try to be humble, but let's be frank. You and I have a platform here that we both have built, and I don't think we take it lightly when we say stuff, because people are listening, and we have a little bit of fun and we poke at people. But at the same time, when people come on the show,
they're freely able to say whatever they feel they need to say. That's what we've done, and that's always been what we've done.
Podvader says, or when you get slotted against your former employer and their room is packed and your room is empty. Ooh, that hurts. That one really hurts.
Yeah. But yeah, Todd, I think, we've gone through a phase, and this is a little bit of a touchy subject, but I do think that we've gone through a phase where events have shifted, right, in their focus. And sometimes it can be, say, less than optimal if they shift too far around trying to give sessions to individuals based on other factors other than their skills and their knowledge.
I know. I know what you want to say.
Right.
But if you're doing a panel, don't ever get coerced into having a certain person on your panel because the event organizer thinks you need to have that person on the panel. Especially if you don't know that person, you don't know their credentials.
That happens all the time now. And
yes. If you're the panel organizer, though, you should be able to find a good, diverse mix of people to have good, solid voices on. There's enough people in the podcasting space to do that, but sometimes it's hard because one wrong panelist can really throw things off the rails.
And I've seen this happen.
We have?
It just wasn't the right people.
Yeah.
You know.
Or sometimes you see something and yeah. Because if you get we got to be careful.
I know. Yeah, right. And it's not because anything other than just, sharing
sometimes the right person is on the wrong panel. Let's put it that way. Right. That's the best way to say it. Sometimes the right person is on the wrong panel. That person should have been on a different panel that you thought, oh man, that would have been a better fit just because of the expertise and experience, and not necessarily experience, but the topic.
Yeah.
Or their motivation or their passion, whatever it may be.
It's the pursuit of being politically correct, right? And I don't know if politically is even it's just, yeah, I probably shouldn't go too far on that.
Yeah. Tom says, events have shifted for sure. A big part of our marketing is gone, but all you can do is matter. Todd and Rob matter. I think we matter. If you actually add value, you matter. Yeah. And again, all Todd and Rob are doing is just giving quirky opinions and sometimes having a little fun and busting on people and hearing what people have to say. It's just like when I go back to the beginning of the show, when I listened to the Joe Budden 2-hour rant, my takeaway from that was every podcaster on the planet needs to hear this. But also, I understand that if every podcaster on the planet listens to it, they're not going to have the same perspective or understand the nuances that maybe I did because I've been in the space so long. Mm-hmm. And what Rob and I are doing this show for is to make sure podcasters are successful and make the right decisions and are informed. And we want you to win and cash big checks, but we want you to do it in a way where you don't get screwed.
Well, and also this show is about holding new entrants into this medium kind of to account for what they do. But to some degree, I mean,
they don't have to answer, but they don't have to answer to us. They can say, "Oh, screw you guys," and
they do.
That's fine.
Like
you guys aren't fine. God. You're not the overlords of podcasting.
Though some people think we are.
No, right? My God. No. If that was the case, people hardly have no idea.
I'm more joking than anything here, but it does feel that way sometimes that we get portrayed like we have more influence maybe than we realize. I guess, and that can be. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't always know.
Here's the thing: you live and die by what you believe in. And you and I have been involved, and we are highly connected to the indie podcaster space. I do at least 10 meetings every 2 weeks with brand new podcasters that are like struggling and need ideas. And it almost within 2 minutes of being on a call, I almost know what I'm going to say to that podcaster for the remaining 28 minutes of the call, because we're in the trenches working with content creators and we get off the call and we're exasperated or like, I helped that one, or maybe I saved that one. So I think from our perspective is, at least in my opinion, that our bread and butter is the indie, and it's bread and butter of our businesses too. So,
right. And there's some questions that are hard to answer now, around, should you monetize? Should you take advertising? Should you get into programmatic? When is a show ready to take advertising? it seems like most of the questions that are hard these days are around monetization.
But I think it depends on the perspective. If they're going into it knowing they want to make money and it's going to be a business, then yeah, you monetize as early as you can and monetize often and build your show and reinvest that money in the podcast, and you're not going to get rich and until you do. So we're being a little bit monologue-y today.
Yes, we are.
I'm going to be like, you guys need to shut the hell up and start talking about regular stuff. By the way, the donation that I was going to talk about earlier came from Sean. So Sean R., thank you very much. It was a $30 donation, by the way. So definitely appreciate the donation to the podcast.
So did you see this where it says podcast advertising is surging back, Todd? New research from Magellan AI and Westwood One are comparing June to January 2020. And the number of podcast advertising has increased 18%. What do you think?
Slow and steady, Rob. Slow and steady.
The other side of this is that I think prior to that period, they were forecasting like a 40+% increase. So just keep that in perspective.
Slow and steady.
Yep. The growth declined.
But it's amazing the amount of people now that are starting to eye all the other content. I'm getting a lot of calls on, what are you doing with your back catalog? I said, well, first of all, I don't own a back catalog. I don't own any content. I said, all the podcasters I work with are independent and I'm not under contract, although a portion of them I have a right to sell into their advertising and they have a right to decline. That blows people away when I tell them that. They, what? They have a right to decline. Yes, I don't own their content. But people are becoming more and more enthused about figuring out how to monetize content creators. And then when I tell them revenue split, they're all, we can't work with that. I'm like, well, the podcaster's doing the work. You aren't. So.
Well, Todd, I heard in an email that the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards is coming back in January.
Well, good for them. I hope they spend millions of dollars on it, and I hope they talk about it on all their radio stations. It just helps podcasting.
Right. Yeah.
The question is,
I think they're going to do a in-person event.
Okay. The question is, where are they going to find their nominees this year?
Well, that's part of what they're going to be doing here soon.
Oh, well, good.
And then,
hey, if you are anyone that's involved in the iHeart Podcast Awards, the New Media Show is eligible for nomination.
There you go. I'm not quite sure which award we would be.
I don't know either.
For.
Satire or whatever.
Or satire. Right. Certainly not comedy. That's for sure.
Contraire, my friend. Contraire. I think we're hilarious at times, or at least I think I am.
I think the percentage of laughter that happens on this show is pretty high.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right.
Because we laugh at ourselves. If you can't laugh at yourself, right?
If you can't laugh at yourself, right. And then also, entries open for the Australian Podcast Award too.
I don't know how many Australian viewers we have, our listeners we have. I have to look at the stats.
I think we have a few.
Yeah.
We have a few. Right.
So James, who should be nominated down there?
Right.
Here's the thing. By the way, I have advertising for Australian podcasters. I don't normally make this pitch. I wouldn't do it on the show, but I can't fill the inventory. So if you know Australian podcasters, I have inventory.
Really?
Yes, I do. So if anybody has specifically Australian podcasters, and it's advertising in other podcasts, so that's part of the challenge as well. Send me an email. I have inventory for you.
So is podcasters looking to advertise?
A podcaster looking to advertise on podcasts in Australia. Yeah, in Australia, Australian podcasters. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got more budget than I have podcasters. So That's
Wow.
kind of rare. So
Wow. Okay,
drop me a line.
Is that like a U.S. company that wants to reach out?
No,
or
it's Australian.
U.S. podcasters
It's an Australian podcaster, Australian company. Yeah,
wants to reach out to that market.
that wants to reach that
Okay.
market. So at this point, I'll consider anybody's show that specifically though you have to originate in Australia.
Right. And I guess Germany now has a podcast ranker called Pod Ratings. Pod Ratings.
Yeah, I think that's being done by a certain company that starts with a P. I think is it?
A P?
They have a podcast ranker, but the company does it say who's? I think I read that it's sponsored by somebody, right? What's the name of?
Let's see here. It's Pod Ranker, Pod Ratings.
Yeah, I'm trying. I heard kind of through the grapevine who's behind that, so I'm not going to say until it's confirmed. But
it says that it's done by a company in Berlin.
Okay, so maybe the information I got was wrong. So
Or it
again,
could be a different something, but
Well,
this does
maybe.
have a address based in Berlin.
I'll have to look at that other company and see if that's where their headquarters are at. But I don't think so. I think they were in Germany. Well, duh, Berlin.
Yeah.
The wall did come down, right?
It did. Yeah. Glad to get you caught up on that, Todd.
I'm a
Just
dumbass.
kidding you.
I'm so
I'm
stupid.
just pulled your leg. And let's see here. Yeah. So there's most popular podcasts. So the stuff's happening outside of the U.S. too.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I guess there's podcasts that it mentions in here that one of these German podcasts that was most popular on this ranking became a Spotify exclusive. So Spotify is doing exclusive podcast relationship with shows in other countries. Well,
I'm sure glad Spotify. The question is, how much money does Spotify have? You know,
well, and how much are they spending?
Well, they're spending a lot. But again, if they're spending a lot, that means that they're offsetting a lot. So it might be free money.
There's even a podcasting platform, Cuban podcast platform called CubaPod. Has launched a podcaster, a management system for podcast creators. So there's even stuff happening in Cuba.
Until you get rolled up and get shot, right? So
Cuba. In Cuba.
It's not CubaPod.com. I brought that up.
Let's see here. What does it come up as?
I can't imagine anyone opening a podcast business in Cuba, but maybe a business that's outside of Cuba that attracts Cuban creators. I don't think, and that's not Fidel, but whatever his brother is, probably is not that enthused about people doing podcasts about things happening in Cuba, kind of like in China.
Right.
Oh, we loved your podcast. Come step around up against this wall.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the...
it's a CubaPod. Huh. Are you getting this out of Pod News? Because I haven't brought it. Obviously, today I have not brought up any of his newsletters.
Yeah, I got it out of there.
Huh.
Yeah, James is doing a terrific job of
he's digging all kinds of stuff up.
To stuff from all around the world, not just the U.S. So that's what's great about looking at his newsletters, that we can get a glimpse of what's happening around the world, which has never existed before. I mean, James really needs to be given a lot of credit for this.
He started another newsletter too? It's something to do with...
Yeah, he did on monetization.
Yeah, that's interesting. So
it's actually run by a separate person. So
I haven't subscribed to it yet.
Building his own kind of network of newsletters here.
Well, you look at his advertising load, I think he's doing okay.
Yeah. No,
and the number of sponsors, and both our companies sponsor. So,
James was recently on the show, so it's good.
Are we just dragging things out here? I'm not being a very good host today and bringing topics to the floor. I apologize. You've been digging out the topics, so I've been relying on. You've been carrying the show today, Rob.
Digging deep, Todd. Digging deep.
Is there any topics the audience want us to go into before we go? I know we've got quite a few people on Facebook today. I haven't been monitoring YouTube. Let's see what we've got over there. Hi, Timothy. Nice to see you too as well. Hope you're living the life, my friend. The non-podcaster, I'm going to podcast someday. Everybody knows Timothy McGovern. If you've been to any of the podcast conferences, he's actually got a really cool business card that basically he's proud about wanting to start a podcast for like the last 8 years and he has yet to do it. So I think you got a lot to say, Tim. It's about time you get on the bandwagon here and tell us about the adventures.
Right. The adventures of podcast.
Oh, no, he could do his traveling adventure. Tim is a retired firefighter out of California, and he's got a camper on the back of his pickup truck, and he goes all over and does cool stuff. So there's got to be some stories there.
Hey, Todd, here's a platform for you, Pod Dog.
Oh my God. Hey, if you need a domain name, I need a podcasting domain, reach out to me. I've got some good ones I can sell you. Poddog.com.
No, it's poddog.jp. It's a Japanese podcast listening app.
Oh.
Called Pod Dog.
Poddog.jp. That's a Japanese website.
Yep.
Oh, well, let me show you here is Pod Dog. So it's an app.
Doesn't appear to be any kind of dog.
You got an app though.
It does.
So
lots of content coming out of in Japanese language.
I'm really kind of surprised. Just curious if podcasting is starting to pick up in Japan. That culturally, I find that significant.
Yeah. I wonder how many shows they have. It doesn't really say.
It doesn't say, but it's going to be.
I couldn't read it if it did.
Well, you can still get an idea by downloading the app and giving it a try. I'll definitely download it and look into it. Might not be able to sign in.
Right. Don't have the right kind of phone.
Well, it'll show up. I just won't know how to read the kanji.
Can you? No. I mean, can you? Can a phone that's locked to the U.S. Okay.
I'm pretty sure. We can answer that question right here on the show. Let's see here.
Yeah.
App Store. Search. Pod. It's kind of an interesting name.
Yeah, it is.
Pod Dog. Oh, Podcat. Top Dog. There we go. Here's the interesting thing. It's written in kanji right on the. You're not gonna. It's not written in English.
But the logo is actually in English.
Not in the App Store. It's not. The only way you're going to find it is if you know what the logo looks like. So anyway, I'm installing it now. We can look up, see if I can even log in once I get it, because I'm not going to know what anything says. But hopefully,
but it does use English in the logo on the website.
Oh my God,
that's pretty much the only English on the page.
So yes, it is. Oh my God, the contrast. It's all written in kanji. All the menus are.
Yeah.
That's okay. I guess I'm supposed to pick my interest. Well, I'm going to need some help here. Oh, it allows me to sign in with my Facebook or Twitter or Apple account or Google. But other than that, I'm lost already. So someone that can read kanji, help us out here.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
All right. I think we made it.
Yeah, we did. We drug it to the end. We drug you all to the end. We apologize. Any thoughts on Saturday's show?
I'm not going to be available.
Oh, I get Saturday off, morning off.
Yes, you do. You do.
Oh, fantastic. So, wow. So, wow. If I didn't have a presentation at 6:00 on Saturday night, I'd had all Saturday off.
Yeah.
Damn the bad luck. So anyway, no show on Saturday. We'll be back next Wednesday, maybe with a guest from Spotify. But-
Maybe, or maybe somewhere else.
But
Who
if
knows?
anyone has a contact with, getting Joe would be a coup. He's not going to come on the show. Who else could
Hey.
be?
I'm gonna take a different course with Joe and see if I can get through to him.
Oh, okay. So anyone talk to Marco on a regular basis? We'd love to have Marco. That's what we didn't talk about. Crap. I just remembered
Marco has said that he wants to come on the show.
Well,
I just haven't been able to connect up with
it.
him.
We haven't
on
talked about the privacy stuff on. Did we talk about the Overcast privacy stuff on the last show?
I don't believe so. No.
So the new Overcast app is going to have privacy warnings, and that's where you got me astray earlier.
Where is there any information
Um,
on their website on it?
Let me see here. I gotta go find it. So it's a new privacy screen on each podcast showing which service each podcast is served through and linking to the privacy policies. So if someone's using Blueberry hosting or Podbean or Libsyn hosting, it's going to show where the media is hosted, and there'll be a privacy link. It'll say Blueberry, and it'll load our privacy policy. If you're using Stats from Blueberry or from Chartable or from Podsites, it's going to say Stats. If you're using Chartable or Podsites, it's going to talk about the tracking that they do and the privacy statement. So basically now listeners are going to be able to, on a show-by-show basis, be able to get information on what is being collected against them and by who. And I think this is important. The one example I saw was Podtrac Stats, NPR with ad insertion, stats, and hosting. There was another one that I saw. Let me see if I can find the example. But it showed, okay, for example, the Audacity to Podcast with Blueberry Stats and hosting, Libsyn Stats and hosting. I don't know how, I don't think I host Daniel's show. I think he hosts with you guys, or because we shouldn't be under hosting for Daniel's show, but we do provide stats for Daniel's show. But there can't be two hosting providers. But
Right.
but maybe that's the extent that they can detect. But you now, at least in the upcoming version of Overcast, you're going to be able to see all this, who and what and where and how listeners are being monitored.
Yeah, and he's put up a page that clearly describes the privacy policy and the relationships that exist out there as it relates to the EU, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act compliance,
Oh, really?
the California Online Privacy Protection Act, and any kind of third-party links. I mean, he goes into great detail
On his website. And where's that link? Do you have a link to that?
It's overcast.fm/privacy is where that is. But I think it's the only platform that I've seen that has this kind of.
Oh, this is a first. Now it
laid
talks about,
this stuff out like this.
well, he tells what he collects.
Right.
But in his app, he's now telling listeners what's
being
is
collected from
what's
them
being
based on where they're hosted.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's going to be eye opener for some people to know how much data is actually being collected, and then linking to the privacy policies. But I think it only scratches the surface. I think there's more of a story there, but I don't want to really rub salt into a wound. I could
Right.
in a big way.
Right.
But I think it's a start. And I
Right.
think podcasters themselves might now think about who they associate with their shows, knowing that their audience is going to know what is being collected by them and the privacy policies of the people they do business with.
Right.
And I can't understate that.
I mean, there's probably no way that any platform like what Marco's done here can be 100% assured that they know what's going on. Because it depends on if it's fully disclosed in in those platforms' privacy policy about what things are going on.
Right. So it's a start. It's not perfect, and it's
Right.
in I think Overcast has actually got a bigger percentage of. I think they're pretty high on percentage wise. They're in the top 10
on a usage on the Apple platform,
right,
on iOS, yeah.
So, and Marco's all about privacy. So, anyway, I knew it was sitting there waiting for it to surface, and you triggered it.
This is a terrific topic to have Marco come on.
Yeah, talk about. Believe me, I can ask him. I'll let him explain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try and get Marco on for Wednesday, especially if Spotify doesn't come through.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, everyone, we're gonna get out of here. We kept you longer anyway. We threw that on at the end. Surprise for anyone that stayed for a little bit longer after Rob said we're not doing anything anymore.
We're done, Todd.
We're done. Hey, we want to thank you for being part of our family here, and we're all fellow podcasters. And if you have comments on today's show, Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter. Rob?
On Twitter as well, at Rob Greenlee. And I do have a website, robgreenlee.com. Plus, you can send me an email if you want to reach out for any reason. Send it to robg@libsyn.com.
And obviously, we keep emails as private as we can. We want to thank the conversation Rob and I had with the individual out there over the past couple of days, and we look forward to continuing that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm be interested to see what you have to say by me telling you had to crawl up your butt, but so we're all friends. Okay, everybody.
This person liked the spirited conversation, Todd, so don't be too concerned.
I'm not, but I just had to throw it out there. It's a little grenade at the end. If they listen to the end. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.